Congratulations, you've fallen off the wagon again. This isn't your first rodeo, of course. You've done this song and dance plenty of times before. Setting goals for yourself and then failing to launch, setting new goals and making progress for a week before falling off again, setting new goals once more and being really consistent until an unforeseen circumstance takes up all of your attention. Now it's been months of you backsliding to the starting point, and it's that time of the year again where you're sick of yourself and ready to make some changes. This time though, you want it to be the attempt that is successful. This is how you restart your self-improvement journey and actually get results. The first step is to reflect on what went wrong last time. Did you overload yourself with tasks and burn out? Did you let your own laziness get in the way of your productivity? Did you try to advance in levels too soon without having the foundational skills needed to pull it off? Did you set goals that were too extreme to stick to long term? You need to really understand where you messed up so that you don't make the same mistake again. You need to know that having a skincare routine that takes 45 minutes to complete is not something you will do every night, since you'll be sleepy and exhausted and would rather just sleep in your makeup instead of force yourself to stand in the bathroom throwing on a million serums, wearing your LED mask, and dragging your jade roller back and forth 100 times. You can do excessive routines when you have the energy, but don't make it the required standard as a daily practice, or else you will be setting yourself up for failure. Think hard about everything you said you'd work on last time and really come to understand what roadblocks got in your way. Once you've identified the roadblocks, make a list of what you can do to avoid them happening again, what changes you personally have to make, what you need to change in your environment, everything. Learn from your past mistakes. Get real with yourself about the ways you self-sabotage and get ahead of it this time. For example, if you wake up and then spend an hour on your phone checking Reddit and Tumblr and Twitter before you finally get up, but you're trying to be an early riser who wakes up and hops to it, you need to acknowledge your self-sabotaging behavior of vaporizing your mornings by being on your phone too much and get ahead of that by putting screen time limits on the apps, making them inaccessible until after 10 a.m. If you self-sabotage by taking random and sporadic breaks in the middle of your homework time, then you need to get ahead of that by setting specific break times by way of Pomodoro sessions. Now, when you're trying to get back on track, you need to start small and work your way back up. You may be used to doing something for 45 minutes, but if you've lost the momentum you built with that task from not doing it for the past 8 months, then you can't expect yourself to be able to jump back to that level straight away. You might have to retrain yourself, and that's perfectly okay. I'm sure the thought of doing 45 minutes is probably causing you resistance right now, and you're avoiding it anyway because you know how much you'd have to suffer to pull that off. Don't suffer needlessly. Start with 10 or 15 minutes, then ramp it up as you regain that momentum. Just because you could do Chloe Ting workouts well in 2020 doesn't mean you have to start there now. Just because you could read a book in a day before doesn't mean you have the attention span for it right now. Work your way back up for however long it takes. You may feel like you've lost progress compared to the past, but it's not the past anymore. The present is at level 0, so being able to go to a level 1 or 2 is making progress. Next, I want you to shrink your timeline way down. By that I mean, you're probably on a self-improvement journey because you're looking for habits and upgrades that will last a lifetime. You want to be into fitness forever. You want to read a lot forever. You want to fix your social media addiction forever. That's all well and good, but it can be really overwhelming to think about having to maintain new habits for the rest of our lives. When you're at the point of exercising where you have to pause the video every minute to rest and get the courage to soldier on, fighting for your life to get through a 30-second plank, it's hard enough to think about doing it again tomorrow, let alone indefinitely. Stop thinking about forever and just have a 1-week timeline. Trying to never use DoorDash again might sound nice, but you're probably skeptical of your ability to commit to that and probably already have a tiny voice in your head letting you know that it's a wrap before you even begin. Forever is laughable, but 1 week is very doable. You can have a successful DoorDashless week and next week too, and the one after that. Small timelines that in succession mean that you've been doing really well for months on end now. You know when it feels like weeks are just flying by? Like, how is it Thursday already? It was just Monday 5 seconds ago. You'll get through your goals that way too. Another successful week completed already? Wow. You know, if forever feels intimidating or makes you feel skeptical of your ability to commit to the challenge, shrink your timeline. It's just a few days. You can get through it. I also want you to have an emergency detour for when things don't go as you'd ideally like to, but you're holding on for dear life to make it work out. For example, maybe you're trying to eat really healthy home cooked meals and stay in a certain calorie range, but you're extremely busy today. You're tired. You didn't thaw out the meat earlier, and if you want to eat, it's going to take a long time before dinner is ready, and you just don't have it in you to power through the scenario you've landed in. Your first thought might be to give up and just pig out on a pizza, but I want you to consider the idea of emergency detours, which in this case would be you having some frozen meals in the freezer. They aren't beautifully meal prep dishes you got from Pinterest and made from scratch with love. Nope, you bought them at the grocery store. They're not made with perfect ingredients, and it's not the pinnacle of health, but it's close enough to your calorie range and it's convenient to keep handy for days like this. Maybe you went over by a few calories, but it's way better than giving up entirely. You pop that bad boy in the oven and you're eating an imperfect dinner that is a much better alternative than a giant greasy pizza and a Coke that leads to you taking the next 2 weeks off from healthy eating, all because of one unplanned situation. The point of an emergency detour is to minimize damage when unexpected circumstances arrive, and that will make all the difference. Girls will hear that makeup wipes are bad for you and refuse to use them anymore, but then have a day where you come home at midnight and can barely keep your eyes open because you're so tired, and makeup wipes would have saved you when you didn't have the energy to double cleanse. So now, instead of doing something imperfect during an emergency unplanned situation, you do something way worse and blow up the whole operation. You must try to avoid that. When faced with the option of imperfection or self-destruction, always choose imperfection. Doing something that isn't ideal on occasion, but ultimately staying on track because of it, will always be preferable than driving straight off the cliff after one inconvenience. Finally, you must keep in mind that a self-improvement journey is not a linear thing. There will always be relapses, missed workouts, incomplete to-do lists, and periods where you're barely maintaining, let alone moving forward. The red days instead of green days. The point of it is not to expect perfection, but rather to minimize the amount of red days we have and maximize green days as much as we can, because that's how you make a life full of good habits, healthy choices, and completed goals, not by killing yourself in the unachievable pursuit of perfection. When you have enough green days under your belt to the point where you're basically on autopilot, you won't need to restart a self-improvement journey when things inevitably go south every once in a while. The red days will just be a period where you're down for a bit, but then you snap out of it and get back to the good stuff. Like when you finish an extremely stressful semester and need 4 days to bum around and recoup, but you get back to your routine once you recharge. What matters is that when you zoom out and look at your week as a whole, your month as a whole, your year as a whole, are you predominantly on track? Only a small handful of hiccups here and there? If so, you're doing great. Bye!